Have you ever wondered what it feels like to die? Not the idea of death, not the fear of it, but the actual moment when your existence ends. The truth is, you never will, not because you are immortal, not because your body cannot fail, but because, according to one strange interpretation of quantum physics, you may never experience your own death at all. To understand this idea, we need to go back to a physicist named Hugh Everett III. Everett proposed something radical, a way to interpret quantum mechanics that removes randomness entirely, instead of particles choosing one outcome. He suggested that all possible outcomes happen, not one, all of them. This idea became known as the many worlds interpretation, and if it's true, then reality is not a single timeline. It is an ever-branching structure of countless parallel worlds. Imagine flipping a coin. In the traditional view, it lands on heads or tails, but in Everett's interpretation, it lands on both, not in the same world, but in two different ones. One where you see heads, one where you see tails, and at the moment the coin lands, the universe splits. Two versions of reality now exist, and two versions of you exist as well, each completely unaware of the other. Now imagine that this process is happening constantly, every second, with every decision, every interaction, every quantum event. Reality is continuously branching into countless versions of itself, an infinite tree of possibilities, and somewhere in that tree, every possible version of your life exists. Most of those branches are similar, small differences, minor variations, but some are not. Some branches are radically different, and some end abruptly. This is where things become unsettling, because if every possible outcome exists, then there are branches of reality where you die. An accident, a disease, a random event. In those branches, your story ends. But that is not the whole picture, because there are also branches where you survive. Barely, unlikely, almost impossibly, but you survive. Now here is the key idea behind quantum immortality. From an outside perspective, many versions of you may die, but from your own perspective, you can only experience the branches where you are still alive. Think about that carefully. You never experience the branches where your consciousness ends, because there is no you left to experience them. Your awareness can only continue in the branches where it persists. So if the many worlds interpretation is true, then subjectively, you may never encounter your own death, no matter how unlikely survival becomes. There is always some branch, however improbable, where you continue, and that is the branch your consciousness follows. This does not mean you are physically indestructible. In most branches, you die. Your body fails. Your life ends. But in a tiny fraction of branches, you don't. And from your perspective, only those branches matter, because those are the only ones you can experience. This creates a disturbing possibility. As time goes on, the branches where you survive become more and more unlikely, more extreme, more unnatural. You might survive events that should have been fatal. You might outlive expectations in ways that seem impossible, not because the universe is protecting you, but because your consciousness is simply continuing along the paths where survival still exists. At first, nothing seems unusual, but over time, the world around you might begin to feel strange. People your age pass away. Statistics no longer seem to apply to you. You continue, again and again, through increasingly unlikely scenarios. Eventually, you may find yourself in situations where survival requires something extraordinary, a coincidence, a miracle, a break in probability so extreme that it almost feels unreal. And yet, you are still here, because in at least one branch you always are. This is the essence of quantum immortality, not that you live forever in every universe, but that you only ever experience the universes where you do. Now let's step back, because this idea depends on something very important: the nature of consciousness. Does your awareness follow a specific branch, or does it somehow split along with the universe? If it splits, then there are multiple versions of you, each experiencing their own reality. In that case, most versions of you still die, and quantum immortality becomes less about a single continuous experience, and more about many separate experiences. But if consciousness has any kind of continuity, if there is a sense in which you move forward through time, then the idea becomes much more unsettling, because that continuity would only exist in the branches where you remain alive. There is no scientific consensus on this. We do not know how consciousness works at a fundamental level. We do not know whether it can jump between branches. We do not know whether it even makes sense to talk about a single continuous self in a branching universe. But the possibility remains, and that is enough to make the idea difficult to ignore. Now imagine what this means in the long term. If your consciousness always continues in some branch, then what happens as your body ages, as time stretches further and further into the future? At some point, survival becomes extremely unlikely. The number of branches where you remain alive shrinks, but it never reaches zero. There is always some path, no matter how improbable. Does that mean you could live for centuries, thousands of years, long enough to see the end of civilization, the end of the planet, the end of the universe? Or does something else happen, something stranger, something we cannot easily imagine? Because survival in extreme conditions may not look like normal life. It might involve radical changes, technological intervention, unusual environments, unknown states of existence. Your continued survival might not resemble the life you recognize today, and that leads to a darker question. Is eternal survival actually desirable? Or does it become something else entirely? There is also a major criticism of quantum immortality. It assumes that consciousness is tied to survival in a very specific way. But what if consciousness does not work like that? What if it does not follow branches? What if each version of you is independent? In that case, there is no single perspective that continues forever. There are only many versions, each with their own limited lifespan. From that point of view, quantum immortality disappears. It becomes an illusion created by misunderstanding identity. And yet, even if the theory is flawed, it reveals something deeply uncomfortable, because it forces us to confront a simple truth. You will never experience your own non-existence, no matter what happens. There is no moment where you observe yourself being gone. From the inside, existence simply continues until it doesn't. But that does is something you can never witness. So, in a strange way, even without quantum immortality, death is always something that happens to others, never directly to you. This is where physics turns into philosophy, and philosophy turns into something more personal, because now the question is not just about the universe. It is about you, your awareness, your identity, your place in reality. Are you a single continuous self? Or are you just one instance among countless versions? Does your consciousness move forward through time? Or is it recreated moment by moment without any true continuity? If reality is constantly branching, then the idea of a single you may be an illusion. There may be countless versions of you, each living slightly different lives, each believing they are the original, each unaware of the others. And if that is true, then the question of immortality becomes even stranger, because it is no longer about one life continuing forever. It is about whether identity itself has any fixed meaning at all. So where does that leave us? Is quantum immortality real? There is no experimental evidence for it, no direct way to test it. It remains a speculative idea built on an interpretation of quantum mechanics that is still debated. Some physicists accept the many worlds interpretation. Others reject it. And even among those who accept it, quantum immortality is far from universally agreed upon. But the idea persists because it touches something deep, something fundamental: the fear of death, the mystery of consciousness, the nature of reality itself. Maybe you will live a normal life. Maybe one day, like everyone else, your story will end. From the outside, it always does, but from the inside, the story might feel very different. Because if even a small part of this idea is true, then somewhere, in some branch of reality, you keep going, you always keep going. And if that's the case, then the most unsettling possibility is not that you will die. It is that, in some sense, you might never get to.